Hello and welcome back to another YouTube tutorial with So Jealous. My name is Jade and I hope that you're having a great day today. Today's video is focused on the magic ring technique and working in the round in general. Most amigurumi projects will be done in the round, so you will need to be familiar with either the magic ring tutorial or chaining 2 and working into the second stitch. Our preferred method is magic ring. There are loads of different ways to do magic rings. This is just our preferred way. I'm sure if you look for magic ring tutorials, you will find other ways of doing it which may be preferable to you. But let's get on with the tutorial. So some of the things that you're going to need in order to be able to crochet amigurumi in the round will obviously be your chenille yarn or any other type of yarn you prefer to use. You will need a darning needle. You will also need some stitch markers. We're going for a little purple one here today. And you'll obviously need your crochet hook. And if you are making a soft toy, then you'll obviously need some stuffing in order to actually stuff the toy. We do have a video tutorial on chenille yarn and how it relates or compares to other yarns and some hints and tips. If you haven't seen that video, I recommend watching it first. I will link it down below in the description. So I have my chenille yarn, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a magic ring. And like I said, there's lots of different ways to do this. This is just our way. So if I zoom in here, so I've got my tail end to my left, and I'm going to take that tail end and wrap it in between my fingers like this, my bottom 2 fingers. And then I'm going to bring it over the front of my fingers, underneath and across to form a cross. The bottom yarn should be going from left to right and the top yarn will be going from right to left. And I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go underneath the bottommost strand, and then I'm going to bring my hook over and take the top strand underneath the bottom, and it creates almost like a little A. And then I'm going to twist so that my hook is facing up. So I've got like my sort of A shape there. So we're keeping this loop on the hook. I'm going to go back under for this yarn and I'm going to pull it through that little loop that we made. And that is essentially your magic ring. And then what you will do from this point is you just very gently, as my plush video suggests, tighten up that loop a little bit, and then you're going to go under, bring your yarn forward, and then complete your single crochet in your magic ring, or whatever stitch the pattern tells you to do. So if I just show you the stitches a bit more, you take your hook, you go under the 2 loops that you have for your magic ring. There'll be 2 strands rather. So you're going to go under both of them. You're going to go and hook your yarn, bring it forward, and then you're going to go through, you're going to pick up a loop and go through both strands. So one more time, under both yarns, pick up your yarn and bring to the front, make a loop, and then pull through. And you will keep doing that to however many is suggested. So here, I'm hoping I should have 6. So if I just show you those 6 stitches. So I've got my first stitch here, these 2 loops. Then I've got my second stitch, which is those 2 loops. I've got my third stitch, which is these 2 loops. My fourth stitch, which is these 2. My fifth stitch, which is these 2 loops. And my 6th stitch, which is these 2 loops. And then what you want to do, you've got your obviously your 2 bits of yarn that you've been crocheting your single stitches around. The end, as in the tail end, what you now want to do is you want to now pull this tight. Now again, if you watch my plush yarn tips and tricks video, I always recommend that you hold the yarn quite towards the bottom end of the magic ring to pull through. and that does help with the splitting of the yarn, which can sometimes happen in a magic ring. And then you just keep pulling until your magic ring is closed. Now, the first stitch on your first row is usually quite tricky because the initial magic ring stitch is usually quite tight. So I showed you earlier that this stitch here is my first stitch of my first row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my first stitch. So I go underneath both loops. So I just pull that apart. You can see there's two loops there. Complete a single crochet as I ordinarily would. We do have a full tutorial on single crochet, which I will link below as well. And then I'm going to take my stitch marker, because we are working in continuous rounds, so like a spiral, and I need to know where my first stitch is. Now, I prefer to put my stitch marker in the first stitch that I make, so I know when I get back to it, this is the start of the next row. Some people prefer to do it in the last stitch of their row. Preference is yours. So I've done 1 crochet. Most often in amigurumi, your first row will be an increase row. So I need to do 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. So you can see here that my stitch, this is my stitch, is coming out from this gap here. So all I'm going to do is keeping on the hook, I'm going to go back in that gap and then bring up and complete another single crochet, and I'm going to do that in every single one around. So I did 6 single crochet in the magic ring, so I need to do 2 lots of 6 single crochet, so I'll end up with 12 overall, because remember I'm doing 2 stitches into 1 stitch from the previous row. So we're just going to complete those. This is my last one. So that's then my first row done. And if I count my stitches, which when you're a beginner, you want to do at the end of every single row because it's very easy to lose track. So I've got 1 here, and then I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12, which is the stitch with the stitch marker. And what I'm looking for, to determine what is a stitch, is these 2 parallel loops. So I've got 1 loop here and a second loop there, and they make kind of like a nice little V shape. That is a stitch. So there's 1, and then if you drop down, there's number 2, and that is what a stitch is. So that is my magic ring and my first row. Now I tend to do 3 rows, and this is how I tighten up my magic ring. Most other people will tell you to crochet over your tail, and I'll show you what that looks like. But I do something different. So this is the back side of my magic ring, and it looks a bit like a puckering butthole. And what I've got here, you can see, is again almost like a V shape. So I've got 2 stitches that run next to each other. So there's 2 here. And what I like to do, because I think this gives the best finish, it helps to alleviate like a bit of a coney top. But again, you need to be careful because this is chenille yarn. It doesn't like to be worked too hard. So I'm going to pull in the direction that I was going. So I'm going to go to my next couple of stitches. Just going to keep going underneath them until I get all the way back around. Do 2 at a time there, just about get away with that. And then I'm back to the beginning. This one is always a bit tight, and I'll usually go over so I'll go back to the beginning plus 1 set of stitches, and then I'm going to pull nice and tight. And that has really made the front of my piece really nice and tight. And then what I'm going to do is, what you'll see is you've got these horizontal bars. And I'm going to go underneath that and just give it a little tug. You see it loosens up a little bit. And I'm going to take my yarn and run it underneath. And then there's the next parallel stitch just here. I'm going to give that a little tug, and I'm going to run my yarn without catching the stitch marker underneath. Here's the next one, a little tug, run underneath. The next one, little tug, run underneath. And again, little tug, run underneath. Now I've done 6 stitches, so there'll be 5 of those parallel or horizontal bars. There's always one less than the amount of stitches that you cast on. Then if I turn this around, I'm not going to get the dreaded little cone at the top because of how I've secured my end. Now, if you want to crochet over your tails, you're absolutely entitled to do that, but I do find that middle section will unfortunately get looser. So crocheting over your tail is simple. You're going to go through your 2 bars on the row, and you're going to take your tail and you're going to bring it over the top of your hook, and you're going to just hold the tail down with this thing. Oh, if I drop that, this is your tail. You're just going to hold it down with one of your fingers like so, and then you're going to complete your single crochet as normal. And what's happened is that yarn has been caught underneath your single crochet, and you'll just continue to do that around until you're happy. So bring it back over the bar or the hook, complete your single crochet, and you're going to do that until you're happy that you feel it's secure enough. And that is crocheting over your tails to also secure your magic ring. So if we just do one more row, so single crochet and then an increase round. I've done 2 single crochet and an increase because just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to keep going, single crochet, and you'll follow whatever the pattern tells you to do for each row. Increase. So I'm back at the beginning of my row now. So that's now 3 rows completed. And you can see that we're starting to get our cone shape, but it's a very smooth mound, a very smooth cone, which is the finish that we want. So that is magic ring and working in the round. So thanks very much for joining us for another quick YouTube tutorial video. This one was on the magic ring and working on the round. Until the next time.